Alana didn't wear a cape, but to everyone in her ER ward she might as well have. 32 years old, a black nurse with a sharp mind and a soft voice, Alana had earned a reputation for grace under pressure. She was the kind of nurse who remembered a patient's favorite music, who brought extra blankets without being asked, and who never forgot the names of her coworkers' kids. But life hadn't been easy. She worked back-to-back night shifts at the city's busiest trauma center, not just for the paycheck, but for her family. Her younger brother was in college, and every tuition bill that came in reminded her why she kept pushing. Their mother had passed 2 years ago after a long illness, leaving behind hospital debt and a house barely holding together. Alana never complained. Never cut corners. Because she believed saving lives wasn't just a job, it was a calling. And on one rainy Thursday night, that calling would be tested in a way no one saw coming. It was just past midnight when the chaos hit. Alana was halfway through a 12-hour shift, charting vitals and checking for drips, when the ER doors slammed open and paramedics rushed in. Male, mid-40s, unconscious, head trauma, multiple fractures, crashing vitals. The man on the stretcher was a mess, his designer suit soaked in blood, his face barely recognizable. No ID. No emergency contact. Nothing but a shattered luxury watch and a deep dent in the side of his skull. Even the paramedics were shaken. Car came out of nowhere. One of them muttered. Driver was alone, lost control, blacked out before he hit the divider. We found him pinned inside a Rolls-Royce Phantom. Staff began scrambling, but no attending physician was available, caught up in another trauma case across the floor. A junior resident hesitated, flipping through protocol steps with trembling hands. Alana stepped forward. She checked the man's pulse, eyes, breathing patterns. His brain was swelling fast, too fast. He'd code in minutes if they waited. We need to relieve pressure now, she said, grabbing the emergency crash kit. The resident froze. That's not our call. Only the attending can authorize. But she wasn't watching him. Alana locked eyes with the dying man and whispered, I'm not letting you die tonight. And with that, she acted. In the high-stakes world of emergency medicine, seconds can mean life or death. And Alana didn't have the luxury of waiting. She slipped on gloves, sterilized the tools, and prepped the man's skull for an emergency decompression, something she had only seen doctors perform, but had trained for during her humanitarian work overseas. We don't have a neurosurgeon on call, someone warned. But her hands didn't shake. With careful precision, she performed a burr-hole procedure, relieving the intracranial pressure just enough to keep his brain from herniating. Monitors began to stabilize. Heart rate improved. Breathing returned. Gasps filled the room, not from the man, but from the staff. She had just done what most nurses wouldn't dare. What most weren't allowed to do. Minutes later, the attending physician finally burst through the doors, took one look at the patient and the readings, and said, nothing. Just a quiet nod. The man was alive. Against the odds. Against the clock. Because Alana took the fall that protocol refused to catch. But what felt like a miracle in that moment would soon become the reason they turned on her. The next morning, Alana came in early, expecting maybe a word of thanks, maybe even quiet recognition. But instead, she was greeted by silence. Tense silence. Her shift manager barely looked at her. Fellow nurses who'd praised her the night before were now avoiding eye contact. The attending physician offered only a clipped, "We'll be reviewing last night's events." Then it came. She was called into the administrator's office. No congratulations, no handshake, just a tight-lipped compliance officer, a legal advisor, and a man from HR she'd never seen before. You performed an invasive procedure outside your licensed scope of practice, they said. There was no attending present. We've reviewed the security footage. She tried to explain the timing, the risk, the absence of the doctor. She mentioned the man's condition. She said, he would have died. But they didn't care. All they said was, you went rogue. No one asked about the patient's status. No one praised her quick judgment. The room felt more like an interrogation than a debrief. And when she left the office that day, the hallway didn't feel like her hospital anymore. It felt like a courtroom. 2 days later, it was official. No hearing. No mediation. Just a curt email titled, "Termination of employment, policy violation." They claimed it wasn't personal, just procedure. "We cannot condone unsanctioned medical actions, regardless of outcome." She was instructed to clear her locker by noon. Security escorted her from the building, like she was dangerous. Like she hadn't just saved a life. And worst of all, no mention of the man she saved. No statement. No thank you. Just cold silence. Her fellow nurses looked on from behind glass windows, some tearful, others frozen with fear. They didn't speak. Not because they didn't care, but because they knew this place didn't protect heroes who broke the rules, even for the right reasons. As she stepped into the parking lot, carrying the last of her things in a cardboard box, her phone buzzed. A news alert. Mystery man in ER crash identified as billionaire tech mogul Michael Cross. Her heart skipped. Him? The man whose life she risked hers for. Was one of the most powerful men in the country. And yet her name? Still nowhere. That evening, the story exploded across every major news outlet. Billionaire Michael Cross survives near-fatal crash thanks to unknown hospital staff. Security footage confirms tech CEO was minutes from death. Silence from hospital on who saved him. Reporters speculated, fans praised his recovery, but the real story, the one that mattered to Alana, was missing. Her name was nowhere in the coverage. No mention of the nurse who made the life-saving call. No interview requests. No spotlight. The hospital released a sterile statement. "We're grateful for the rapid efforts of our emergency team. We continue to uphold the highest standards of care." That was it. No ownership. No credit. And worse, no acknowledgement that Alana no longer even worked there. Meanwhile, Michael Cross was back in the headlines, being seen at private recovery retreats, remote board meetings, and even smiling in a photo from his estate. He was alive. Well. And silent. Alana watched it all unfold on her cracked phone screen from the worn couch of her small apartment. The man she saved was reclaiming his empire. And she was running out of savings. Word about Alana's firing slowly began to trickle through the nursing community. At first, just whispers in private group chats. Wait, wasn't she the one who saved the billionaire? They fired her for that. A few coworkers messaged her privately, offering quiet support, but most stayed silent. Not because they didn't care, but because they were scared. In a system that punishes even the right thing, loyalty had limits. Online, anonymous forums picked up the discussion. Nurse saves billionaire, gets fired. Where's the justice? But with no name attached to the story, no face to rally behind, it quickly got buried beneath newer headlines. Alana applied to 4 hospitals in 1 week. None called back. By the second week, a recruiter finally told her the truth off the record. They're saying you're high risk. That you don't follow authority. That you acted recklessly. That stung more than being fired. Not only was she erased, now she was being rewritten. Her savings thinned. Her brother offered to drop out of school to help, but she refused. Because deep down, she believed the truth would surface. What she didn't know was that the hospital had already sent her case to the state board. And now, they were trying to take her license. A thick envelope arrived at Alana's apartment one rainy morning. No return address, just her full name and estate seal. She tore it open with shaky hands. Inside, a formal notice of investigation from the state nursing board. Allegations of gross negligence. Unauthorized medical intervention. A possible revocation of her nursing license. Her heart sank. It wasn't just her job anymore. Now they were coming for her career, the very thing she had built her life around. She called the number listed for legal help. The voice on the other end said, "If you can't afford a private attorney, you'll be assigned a public defender." She laughed, But it wasn't from humor. It was disbelief. After saving a billionaire, she was now preparing to fight for her entire future, with a stranger who didn't even know her name. And still, no word from Michael Cross. No letter. No statement. Just silence. The hearing was set for 30 days from now. 30 days to prove she wasn't reckless. 30 days to prove she was the reason a man was still alive. And the system? It was sharpening its teeth. The courthouse was nothing like the hospital. No beeping monitors. No rushing footsteps. Just cold marble, stiff chairs, and the quiet hum of fluorescent lights that made everything feel heavier. Alana sat at a scratched wooden table beside her assigned public defender, a well-meaning but overwhelmed man named Harris, who had skimmed her file the night before and still mispronounced her name when the judge walked in. The room wasn't packed, but the tension made it feel like a spotlight was hanging over her. Across from her, the hospital's legal team sat in pristine suits, flipping through binders, whispering to each other like this was just another case to close. They didn't see a nurse who saved a life. They saw a liability. The judge, gray-haired and expressionless, read the charges aloud. Violation of hospital procedure. Performing a restricted medical operation without physician supervision. Gross negligence under state nursing standards. Every word hit like a stone. Alana tried to stay composed, but her hands were trembling under the table. She glanced toward the door, half hoping, half dreading. Would he show up? Would Michael Cross, the man she saved, say anything? Speak up? But the clock kept ticking. And the seat in the back of the courtroom stayed empty. Day one of the hearing ended in a haze. Alana walked out of the courtroom feeling smaller than ever. Her lawyer had stumbled through technicalities. The hospital's team painted her as reckless. A nurse with a hero complex, they called her. And through it all, not a single word from Michael Cross. She checked the news that night. He was in Monaco. At a private tech summit. Grinning in photos. Shaking hands. Launching a new global initiative on AI ethics. Ethics. The irony stung like vinegar in an open wound. Had he even remembered her face? Did he know what she risked? Each night, she stared at the ceiling wondering if she should have done things differently. If she should have waited. Followed the rules. Let the man die. But she knew the answer. That man wouldn't be on stage in Monaco if she hadn't acted. And yet, he hadn't lifted a finger for her. The next hearing was set for Friday. The hospital was pushing for full license revocation. No job. No appeal. No second chance. And the silence from the man she saved? It was deafening. Friday morning came like a storm. Alana stood outside the courthouse in the drizzle, clutching her coat tight, trying to breathe through the nerves. Her public defender walked beside her, flipping through notes like they were lottery numbers, hoping one of them would hit. Inside, the hospital's lawyers came in sharp and confident. Their lead attorney, a woman named Price, opened with a statement that echoed through the room. This case is not about heroism. It's about safety. Our protocols exist for a reason. Ms. Alana James knowingly bypassed them. That is not courage, that is liability. Alana's jaw clenched. Her lawyer tried to defend her, but the case was uneven. They questioned her qualifications, her motive, even brought up a half-forgotten disciplinary note from years ago, something about clocking out 5 minutes late during an overnight shift. They painted her as impulsive, emotional, untrustworthy. And just when it seemed like they were about to bury her for good, the judge glanced at the clock. We'll break for recess. Resume at 2:15. Alana stood slowly, feeling the weight of a battle she was losing. She looked toward the back of the courtroom. Still no Michael Cross. Still empty. She stepped into the hallway to breathe. And then, the double doors creaked open. Gasps filled the hall. Reporters lifted cameras. A familiar figure in a tailored coat walked in, flanked by 2 aides. Michael Cross. No sunglasses. No security. No press statement. Just direct eye contact. And a quiet nod. He was here. The room froze. Michael Cross, billionaire tech visionary, the man whose name built skyscrapers, was now standing in the same courtroom where they were trying to destroy the woman who saved him. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Cross, I assume this is not a coincidence?" Michael walked to the front with calm authority. His voice was low but clear. "Your Honor, I'd like to be heard." Alana stared at him, stunned. He hadn't spoken a word to her. No call. No message. Yet now, he stood just feet away. The judge nodded slowly. "You may proceed." Briefly. Michael turned, not to the judge, but to everyone. 32 days ago, I was clinically dead for 2 minutes. I don't remember the crash. I don't remember the ambulance. But I remember the first voice I heard when I woke up, hers. He pointed to Alana. This woman brought me back to life. Not the attending. Not the chief of medicine. Her. And what did this hospital do in return? They fired her. Then dragged her here like a criminal. The courtroom was dead silent. He stepped closer. You want to talk about negligence? How about a system that punishes action and rewards silence? I've read the transcripts. I've seen the security footage. She didn't break protocol. She broke through apathy. Alana's eyes welled with tears. For the first time since that night, someone had finally spoken the truth. Michael took a breath, turned to the judge, and said, Your Honor, I have documentation from 2 independent medical boards that reviewed her actions. Both concluded that Nurse Alana James' intervention was not only medically sound, it was heroic. Gasps and murmurs spread through the courtroom. Even the hospital's attorneys looked rattled. Michael wasn't finished. I've also uncovered internal emails from the hospital's admin team. Emails that show they feared public backlash for how the incident might look if the story went viral. He pulled out printed pages and placed them on the evidence table. They didn't fire her for violating protocol. They fired her to cover their own failure, to staff the ER properly, to support their team in a crisis. The judge leaned forward, eyebrows raised. The lead hospital attorney stood up, red-faced, scrambling to object, but Michael cut her off. You object? I nearly died. I owe this woman my life. And you want to debate procedure? He turned one last time to Alana. I'm sorry I stayed quiet this long. I thought the system would protect you like you protected me. I was wrong. Then, to the courtroom. I'm not just here as a patient. I'm here as a witness. The judge nodded slowly, then ordered a recess. And just like that, the case had flipped. After recess, the courtroom felt different, charged, alive. Gone was the quiet dismissal of Alana's actions. In its place, tension, exposure, and the uncomfortable shifting of a hospital's carefully controlled narrative unraveling. The judge returned and asked the hospital's legal team if they wished to proceed with the complaint in light of the new testimony and evidence. Their lead attorney stood, her voice quieter now. Your Honor, in light of recent developments, the hospital would like to withdraw its motion for disciplinary action against Nurse James. A wave of emotion hit Alana like a flood. But it wasn't over. Michael Cross stood again. I'd like to make a formal offer to Nurse James. I've started a medical nonprofit aimed at emergency training and crisis response in underfunded communities. I want her to lead it, full control, full salary, full respect. The courtroom stirred again. The judge looked at Alana. Do you accept, Ms. James? Alana stood, stronger now, taller than before. Yes, Your Honor. And not just for me, but for every nurse who's ever been punished for doing what's right. The gavel dropped. Case dismissed. License reinstated. But more than that, her name restored. Her dignity recognized. And for the first time in weeks, Alana smiled. Months later, sunlight poured over a ribbon strung across the front of a modest brick building in the heart of the neighborhood Alana grew up in. A new community emergency response clinic, fully funded, fully staffed, and bearing a brass plaque at the entrance. The Alana James Medical Center, founded in honor, built on courage. Children played on the sidewalk. A local news crew filmed quietly. Nurses in scrubs buzzed around inside, preparing for their first day of service. At the center of it all stood Alana, wearing her new badge, her white coat crisp, her confidence quiet but unshakable. Michael Cross stood beside her, hands in his pockets, staying out of the spotlight, just watching. No speeches. No press stunts. Just mutual respect. Alana glanced at him. "I'm still not sure how to thank you." He shook his head. "You already did. The day you didn't let me die." They cut the ribbon together, and the doors opened to a future built not on privilege or protocol, but purpose. Because Alana wasn't just back on her feet. She had built something bigger than any courtroom could ever take away.